You were never cut out for this role, my manager said, her tone dripping with disdain as she leaned back in her designer chair. She spoke as if she had rehearsed the line, savoring the delivery. The office lights glinted off the glass walls behind her, casting her in a halo of authority she hadn't truly earned. Across the table, I folded my hands in my lap, forcing myself to remain composed. My heart pounded, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing it. She tilted her head, smirking. You've been useful, Amanda, but the West Bridge Complex project needs someone with actual vision. Someone like me. I raised an eyebrow. The same project where my redesign saved us nearly $400,000 in construction costs. Her smirk deepened. Our redesign, Amanda, don't make this difficult. I presented it to the board. That's what leadership is, knowing how to communicate ideas. Your job is to support me, not compete with me. She sighed theatrically, as if I were a child who refused to understand her rules. I nodded slowly, letting a strange calm wash over me. I understand perfectly. I'll be gone on Friday, but Monday, I allowed the pause to linger, watching her eyes narrow. Monday is going to be fun. She rolled her eyes and waved a dismissive hand. Always with the cryptic comments, this is exactly why you'll never move up. You don't belong here, Amanda. Some people just aren't leadership material. Her words stung, not because I believed them, but because they echoed years of her quiet sabotage. Still, I stood, smoothed my blazer, and walked out of her office without another word. Through the glass walls, I caught glimpses of my colleagues. Some avoided my eyes. Others looked at me with pity. They had seen the way my manager, Victoria Hayes, the firm's youngest and most celebrated director, used me. They had watched her climb the ranks by harvesting my ideas, polishing them with a few words, and presenting them as her own. 8 years I'd given this company. 8 years of late nights, weekends sacrificed, and designs that had won awards under her name. I'd always told myself it was temporary, that eventually the truth would shine through. But the truth didn't matter in an office where charisma outweighed substance. As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed. A message from Eric, one of the senior engineers I trusted. How did it go? I typed back quickly. As expected, she's pushing me out. His reply came fast. That's insane. After everything you did for the coastal housing project. Her project? I corrected with bitter humor. At least that's what the press release had said. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small black external hard drive. It looked so ordinary, yet it contained months of careful preparation. Every design draft I'd created, every email chain, every timestamp that proved my authorship. Insurance I'd begun collecting when Victoria's thefts shifted from forgetting my contributions to actively erasing my name from presentations. I'd played along for too long, hoping my work would speak for itself. But when she requested access to my entire portfolio for archival purposes last month, I knew what she was doing. She was preparing to replace me entirely, rewriting history so she could stand on the foundation of my career. And now she thought she'd succeeded. A laugh escaped my lips, quiet enough that no one noticed. She had no idea what was waiting for her. My gaze drifted to the wall of framed project photos in the main hallway. The Greenfield Community Center, the Riverside Towers, the award-winning coastal housing project. Every one of them bore Victoria's name on the plaques. Every one of them was mine in spirit and in design. Seeing them now, I felt both a pang of regret and a spark of determination. I wasn't naive anymore. This wasn't just about pride or recognition. It was about survival, reputation, and justice. As I packed my things into a small box, just the essentials, the rest could wait, I repeated my words silently. Friday I'll leave, but Monday will be fun. Because Monday, Victoria would discover that building her empire on stolen work came with a price. Friday came quicker than I expected. The office felt colder that morning, though maybe that was just me, knowing it would be my last official day at Reynolds & Clark. When I arrived, my desk had already been stripped down to the bare minimum. HR had sent an email reminding me to transition my files by noon. It was as if I were being erased in real time, reduced to a name on a separation form. I tried not to let it sting, but after 8 years, it did. 8 years of building a career brick by brick. 8 years of pouring myself into designs that balanced creativity with practicality. And 8 years of watching Victoria Hayes, my manager, present my work as if it were born from her own brilliance. People always wondered how she rose so quickly. How she became one of the youngest directors in the firm's history. I used to wonder too. Now I knew she hadn't built her career. She'd borrowed mine. As I began packing the last of my things into a box, Eric stopped by. He leaned against the edge of my desk, his voice low. "So, it's really happening." I nodded. She made sure of it. "You know," he said carefully. "People talk. We all know you carried the coastal housing project. Without you, it wouldn't have met budget, let alone won that award." "That's not what the press release said," I replied. Bitterness crept into my tone before I could stop it. He studied me for a moment. "You're too calm. You're planning something." I smiled faintly, but said nothing. I didn't owe him an explanation. On my lunch break, I walked past the company's wall of fame. The glossy photos of our signature projects. My heart twisted as I scanned them. The Greenfield Center, the Riverside Towers, the Coastal Housing Project. All of them bore Victoria's name as lead. Each plaque was a reminder of my silence. For years, I'd told myself to endure it. That recognition wasn't everything, that the work itself mattered. But recognition did matter. Without it, you became invisible, replaceable, expendable, just like me now. I returned to my desk and slipped the small external hard drive into my bag. Inside it lived years of careful documentation, drafts, sketches, design files, email chains with metadata that proved authorship. I hadn't collected it out of spite, but out of survival. Something inside me had whispered months ago. "One day you'll need this." Friday afternoon blurred by. HR handed me a separation packet that promised 2 months of severance in exchange for my silence. Victoria didn't even come by to say goodbye. She was probably in a conference room rehearsing her next big presentation, the one she'd undoubtedly give on Monday now that I was out of the way. When 5 o'clock came, I carried my box to the elevator. Some colleagues offered polite goodbyes. Others avoided eye contact. Only Jenna, the receptionist, gave me a hug. She whispered, "We all know the truth, Amanda. Don't let her win." Her words stayed with me as I left the building. At home that evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at my kitchen table, staring at the contents of my box. Family photos, a mug my daughter had given me, a desk plant already drooping from neglect. 8 years condensed into a cardboard container. I opened my laptop and connected the hard drive. On the screen, folders neatly labeled Greenfield, Riverside, Coastal Housing, West Burbridge Complex. Each one filled with original files, sketches, timestamps, proof of my work. I scrolled through the West Bridge folder in particular. The design that saved $400,000 in construction costs was still there in its raw form, complete with calculations, revisions, and notes written in my hand. Victoria could dress it up and present it to the board, but she couldn't erase the fact that I had created it. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control. I wasn't naive enough to think revenge was simple. Companies like Reynolds and Clark protected their stars. People like Victoria built armor out of charm, connections, and carefully cultivated narratives. Going against her would be like standing in a storm with nothing but an umbrella. But sometimes all it took was one leak in the armor, one truth she couldn't spin. And I had it. Later that night, Eric texted me again. "Are you okay?" I stared at the message, considering how to respond. I typed back, I will be. Monday will be interesting. There it was again. The phrase I'd said to Victoria. Monday. I didn't know if Eric would understand it, but I did. Monday wasn't about revenge for the sake of revenge. It was about finally pulling back the curtain, about refusing to let someone else write the ending to my story. I closed my laptop and finished my wine. Friday was over. Monday was coming. And Victoria had no idea what was waiting for her. The weekend passed in a haze of restless thoughts. I tried to distract myself with errands, with calls to my daughter, with long walks around the neighborhood. But no matter what I did, my mind returned to the same point. Monday, I didn't know exactly how it would unfold, but I knew this much. Victoria had pushed me out because she was afraid. Afraid I'd discover what she had done. By Sunday evening, the pieces started to fall into place. I was sorting through my emails, preparing my documentation, when I noticed something strange, a forwarded message in my archive, one I didn't remember sending. It was addressed to a contact at Whitaker Design, one of our firm's biggest competitors. Attached was a draft sketch for the West Bridge complex. The problem was I hadn't sent it. My stomach sank as I scrolled further. 3 more emails, all apparently from my account, forwarding project materials to external addresses. The dates matched the week I'd been on vacation. I froze. Victoria hadn't just been stealing my work. She'd been planting evidence, too. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying conversations in my mind. Her smug comments, the way she dismissed me in front of others, her insistence that some people just aren't leadership material. It wasn't just arrogance. It was strategy. She was laying the groundwork to paint me as incompetent, even disloyal. And if those emails ever surfaced, people might actually believe her. By the time Monday morning came, I was running on coffee and adrenaline. I didn't have to go into the office anymore, but I wanted to see what Victoria had planned. Something told me this wasn't going to be just another staff meeting. At 9:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. The receptionist. Big announcement at 10 o'clock. Harold is here. Everyone's whispering. Harold Reynolds, the founder himself. He hadn't been in the office in weeks. My pulse quickened. Whatever this was, it was important. I threw on a blazer and grabbed my bag, the hard drive tucked securely inside. By 9:45, I was in the lobby, blending into the small crowd of employees trickling toward the conference room. No one seemed surprised to see me. Maybe they assumed I had been invited. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Victoria stood near the front, polished as ever in her navy suit, radiating confidence. She didn't even glance in my direction. That alone told me she was nervous. Pretending I wasn't there was easier than acknowledging me. Harold cleared his throat. Thank you all for joining us on short notice. Today marks a pivotal moment for Reynolds and Clark. We are proud to announce a strategic collaboration with Whitaker Design on the West Bridge complex. The room erupted in polite applause. My chest tightened. Whitaker, the very competitor my stolen emails had been sent to. Victoria stepped forward, smiling graciously. This partnership is the result of months of effort, and I am honored to have led the design vision that made it possible. The West Bridge complex will set a new standard for sustainable urban development. She clicked a remote and my sketches filled the projector screen. My renderings, my calculations, my sleepless nights paraded as her own. I felt my jaw clench. The presentation went on for 20 minutes, a polished performance of stolen brilliance. Victoria spoke about her innovations, about her cost-saving designs, about her vision for the city. When it ended, Harold turned to the room. Effective immediately, Victoria Hayes will serve as lead director for the West Bridge project. Her leadership has positioned this firm as a leader in sustainable design. Applause again. But this time, I noticed something different. Not everyone was clapping enthusiastically. A few glanced at me, uncertainty in their eyes. After the meeting, I slipped into the hallway, my mind racing. It all fit together now. The stolen files, the planted emails, the accelerated timeline of my departure. It was all to clear the way for this announcement. Victoria had set me up as the fall guy. If anyone ever questioned the designs, she could point to those fake emails and claim I had leaked them to Whitaker. Meanwhile, she would stand at the front of the room, basking in applause. As I left the building, Eric caught up to me. "Amanda, wait." He lowered his voice. "You need to be careful. After you left Friday, Victoria told people you'd been acting unstable. She even suggested you tried to claim credit for her work." My chest tightened. "Of course she did. She's covering her tracks," he said. "And now with this Whitaker deal, she looks untouchable." "Untouchable?" I repeated softly. "For now, maybe." Because what Victoria didn't know was that I still had the originals, the raw files with timestamps that predated her so-called vision, and I wasn't about to let them gather dust. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table again, the hard drive glowing faintly beside my laptop. I opened the Westbridge folder and scrolled through every draft, every calculation, every annotated sketch. For the first time in months, I felt something close to clarity. Victoria had built a trap for me, but she hadn't realized I'd built one for her, too. By noon on Monday, I'd stopped shaking. Not because I felt brave, but because fear eventually burns itself out and leaves something harder behind. I called a lawyer a former client had recommended employment in IP. And by 1:30 p.m., I was in her small conference room, clutching my hard drive like it might disappear if I blinked. She introduced herself. Maya Patel, direct voice, no fluff. I gave her the short version. 8 years of work, a manager who took credit, suspicious leaks to a competitor while I was on vacation, and this morning's announcement with my designs on the screen under her name. Maya listened without interrupting. When I finished, she steepled her fingers. 2 tracks, she said. Authorship and ownership aren't the same. The firm may own the work product, but authorship and misconduct matter. We don't blast the press. We put the company on notice, request a litigation hold, and force an internal forensic audit. If they stonewall, we escalate. Meanwhile, we warn the partner firm that authorship is in dispute. No specifics, no files, just enough to make them pause. I exhaled. "So, I'm not crazy." "You're precise." She corrected. "That's better." We drafted 2 messages. The first to Harold Reynolds and the firm's general counsel. Subject line: Hold an authorship dispute Westbridge. It included a short factual summary, original CAD files with timestamps predating any submission to Whitaker, contemporaneous emails documenting my design process, and evidence that emails were sent from my account to external domains while I was out of state. I didn't attach files, just an index and screenshots of file properties with visible dates. We requested a forensic review of server access logs, email rules, and workstation login for the dates I was in Vancouver, plus a preservation order on all Westbridge-related content. The second message went to Whitaker's legal inbox, CCing Maya. Notice of disputed design authorship, Westbridge, 1 paragraph, clinical and calm. Authorship was under internal investigation at Reynolds. I requested they refrain from public representations until it was resolved. No accusations, no drama. I hit send at 2:07 p.m. At 2:22 p.m., Harold replied, "Please come in at 4 p.m., General Counsel will join. Bring your documentation." The speed told me they were worried. Good. I texted my daughter that I might be late for dinner. "You've got this," she wrote back. Evidence beats volume. At 3:58, I stepped out of the elevator with my bag over my shoulder and that peculiar sensation of walking into a building you no longer belong to. Jenna gave me a small nod from reception. "Conference room B." She mouthed. Harold was already seated. Tie loosened, the firm's general counsel, Linda Cho, beside him with a legal pad. Victoria wasn't there. Relief washed over me. "Thank you for coming, Amanda," Harold said, voice formal. I connected my laptop and opened a folder labeled Westbridge Origin. "I won't share confidential content beyond what's necessary," I began, keeping my tone even. "You asked for proof. Here is the file tree versioned with timestamps. This drawing set V03 through V11 predates any calendar entry referring to Whitaker. The cost-saving calculations are in these spreadsheets with formula history." And here I clicked into properties, the creation dates, author fields, and save paths. Linda leaned forward. "We'll have it verify the metadata against server logs." I nodded and switched windows. Now, the forwarded emails. I brought up my mail archive. 3 outbound messages to external domains while I was on vacation. I didn't send them. There was also a filter created that week forwarding anything with Westbridge in the subject to an external alias. It can confirm rule creation and the IP addresses used. Harold rubbed his temple. "Why didn't you bring this to us sooner?" "Because every time I tried to raise credit issues, they were reframed as performance problems," I said, looking at him, not away. "And because I needed more than my word," Linda picked up the phone and dialed an internal extension. "I'm placing a litigation hold on all Westbridge content. Pull workstation logs for Amanda Carter and Victoria Hayes for June 15 through June 21. I want email audit logs, rule changes, and any remote sessions." She hung up, then turned back to me. "Anything else?" I opened a separate folder. Attribution evidence emails from earlier projects, Greenfield, Riverside, where Victoria explicitly asked for my drafts and costing magic, giving me explicit credit in writing before later speeches erased it. "This isn't about ownership," I said quietly. "It's about authorship and a pattern." We were interrupted by a knock. Victoria stepped in poised, smile fixed. "I heard there was a meeting regarding Westbridge," she said like a line she'd rehearsed. Her eyes flicked to my laptop. "I assume we're being fair to all parties." Linda was crisp. "We'll speak with you separately, Victoria." Victoria's smile tightened. She didn't move. "Well, since I'm here." "Separately," Linda repeated, standing. The room chilled. Victoria hesitated, then left, heels clicking in a staccato that sounded angrier than she meant. A text flashed on my phone from Jenna. "FYI, Victoria asked it 10 minutes ago if they could clean old caches from project drives. They said no." Linda's eyes met mine. "Please forward that screenshot to me." I forwarded Jenna's screenshot to Linda, my hand steady now. It felt like the balance of power was shifting, if only slightly. Harold leaned back in his chair, exhaling. "Amanda, I'll be frank. This is serious. If what you've shown holds up under IT's verification, then Victoria hasn't just violated internal trust. She's compromised a flagship partnership. That crosses into liability." "Liability?" I repeated, though I already knew. Linda nodded. "If Whitaker moved forward based on stolen intellectual contributions, and Reynolds and Clark knew or should have known, it could spiral into contract disputes. Add the falsified emails, and we're approaching fraud territory." For the first time in weeks, I felt seen. Not pitted, not dismissed, is seen. At 5:12 p.m., Harold closed his notebook. "We'll suspend Victoria pending review. You will not discuss this outside this room until the audit is complete. Understood?" I gave a single nod. Understood. When I stepped out into the hallway, Victoria was waiting, arms crossed, a brittle smile painted on her lips. "Enjoy your little performance in there?" she asked, low enough that only I could hear. I met her gaze evenly. "This wasn't a performance, Victoria. It was evidence." Her smile cracked, just slightly, like a porcelain mask with a hairline fracture. She leaned in closer. You think one folder makes you bulletproof? I've built relationships in this firm you can't touch. I didn't flinch. Then you should pray relationships weigh more than server logs. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen before, hesitation. She brushed past me without another word, heels clattering against the marble floor. I walked out of the building into the cool evening air. My phone buzzed, a text from Maya. Good start. Hold your ground. This isn't over, but they're listening now. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and finally allowed myself a long breath. Friday had been an ending. Monday was becoming something else entirely, a beginning, maybe even a reckoning. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. 3 days later, the audit reports landed on Harold's desk. By 9 a.m., word was already trickling through the halls. Victoria's access logs showed multiple late-night remote sessions during my vacation week, all routed through her VPN key. IT confirmed the forwarding rules had been created under her credentials, then deleted 2 days later. The damning detail, one of the emails she sent from my account had originated from her office desktop. By noon, Victoria was escorted out of the building. No farewell speeches, no framed plaques carried in her arms, just silence and the sharp click of her heels echoing down the marble corridor. For years, she had commanded rooms with her presence. That day, people turned away, pretending not to see her. But the story didn't end there. The Whitaker partnership faltered within 24 hours. Their legal team, spooked by the notice Maya had sent, pulled back, demanding clarity before proceeding. Harold called me personally that evening. His voice, usually smooth with practiced confidence, carried an edge of fatigue. Amanda, he said, we owe you an apology. And more than that, we owe you an acknowledgement. Your work built Westbridge. That's not in dispute anymore. For the first time in 8 years, I heard my own name linked to my work without hesitation. It was vindication, sharp and bittersweet. But Reynolds and Clark wasn't offering me reinstatement. No. They were offering something else, a quiet settlement, a non-disclosure clause, and a tidy check that would make most people walk away smiling. Maya looked at me across her desk as I read through the draft agreement. This is their play, she said evenly. They want to erase the mess, by your silence, and move on. But you have leverage. Don't undersell it. Leverage. The word tasted different now. For years, I had no leverage. Just ideas Victoria stole and credit she hoarded. But now the balance had shifted. That night, I sat at my kitchen table again, the hard drive humming softly beside my laptop. I stared at the folders: Greenfield, Riverside, Coastal, Westbridge. Proof of everything I had built, everything she had stolen. I thought about the years I had been invisible. About the plaques on the wall that bore someone else's name. About my daughter asking why I worked so late if no one noticed. And I realized, this wasn't just about getting back at Victoria anymore. It was about rewriting the narrative. I called Maya. Draft a counter, I said. No gag clause. Public acknowledgement of authorship. And the check stays. Silence on the line, then a smile in her voice. Now you're thinking like someone they can't erase. The next morning, the counteroffer was on Harold's desk. And for the first time, Reynolds and Clark had to decide whether my silence was worth more than my truth. The board meeting was set for Friday morning. Not a staff update, not a hushed HR matter. This was the kind where every director sat at the long walnut table, shareholders dialed in, and reputations were weighed like currency. Maya and I sat opposite Harold and Linda, the general counsel. My counteroffer lay in front of them: no gag clause, a public correction of authorship on Westbridge, and full severance. Harold adjusted his glasses, scanning the document again. Amanda, this is unprecedented. Public acknowledgement invites scrutiny. Investors hate scrutiny. Then maybe you should have managed your directors better, Maya cut in. Her tone was cool, unshaken. I leaned forward. This isn't about vengeance. It's about accuracy. My daughter walked past those project plaques for years, knowing her mother's name should have been there. I won't let her grow up thinking silence is the price of survival. The room went still. Even through the conference line, I sensed the weight of it. Linda whispered something to Harold. He frowned, then nodded. Finally, he spoke, "You'll have your acknowledgement. The board will authorize a statement attributing primary design authorship on Westbridge to Amanda Carter. Reynolds and Clark will retain ownership rights, but the record will be corrected." "And the settlement?" Maya asked. "Unchanged," Harold confirmed. It was victory, but not the loud kind. No headlines, no courtroom drama, just a line in the firm's official release and a quiet transfer of funds. Yet when the statement went out that afternoon, colleagues messaged me privately. "Finally. We knew it was you. We're glad it's in writing." As for Victoria, her name vanished from the Wall of Fame within the week. The plaques were replaced with new engravings, mine included. Word spread she was contesting her dismissal, but no one wanted her back. Her empire of charm had cracked, and no one rushed to rebuild it. That Friday evening, I stood outside Reynolds and Clark for the last time. No box in my arms this time. No shame in my chest. Just the knowledge that my work, my name, had survived. 8 years stolen, but not erased. And as I walked away, I felt something I hadn't in years: was freedom.